The timer has started, which means I now have 10 minutes to tell you why I... Did you like that? Did you like the little title sequence? Yeah, so when that happens, I'm still here. The timer's still going. I just put a gap in to hope that future me kind of edits that correctly. I'm always here, watching you. Always. Anyways, let's talk about Monster Hunter. Now, I'm going to assume that if you're here, I don't need to explain to you about why Monster Hunter is quite literally the best gaming franchise of all time, and I will not take any arguments about that, and it will win Game of the Year in 2025. Maybe. No, what I want to tell you today is about a certain itch, a certain scratch, a certain feeling that I have been missing in Monster Hunter. Now, as much as I love Monster Hunter, I was quite literally born the year that Monster Hunter released in 2004. It was kind of meant to be. There's just something I'm missing. There's something that I've been craving. Now, don't get me wrong, I have my favorite weapon. I stand by Greatsword quite harmoniously, may I just say. I'm married to her. I would never cheat on my lovely, beautiful wife. Or husband. I don't judge. But there's a weapon I've been waiting for. A weapon that really encapsulates the feeling of understanding not only a monster or a weapon, but yourself as a player. That feeling that encapsulates the dance that every hunter strives for. That feeling where every slash makes sense. Every hit is perfect. Every dodge is guaranteed. Where you know what the monster is going to do before it even knows you're there. That's the dance I'm looking for. Now, there are weapons that come close to that, but not exactly to the same extent. Now, speaking of weapons, let's talk about some weapons that I think are similar in the sense, or at least will help you get an understanding of what I'm talking about. And I think that Monster Hunter weapons go into a category, or they have a family together. There are some weapons that are similar to others, like Lance and Gunlance. It's a lance, but with a gun, and then it's a lance. That's just a lance. You know, they're similar. Light bowgun and heavy bowgun. Ugh. You know? But the two specifics I want to talk about today are Switch Axe and Charge Blade, and Hunting Horn, and Hammer and Greatsword. Hunting Horn is later. That's a different video. Don't pop up yet. You're not here yet. Anyways, for Switch Axe and Charge Blade, if you look at them on a piece of paper or without going into crazy detail, they look like a very similar weapon. I mean, with Switch Axe, you just slash the monster and charge up until you finish off with a big explosion. Sounds like my Friday nights. And with Charge Blade, well, you hit the monster, charge up your files, load them in, and finish off with a big old explosion. Sounds like my night with your mother. But how we get there is very different, and that's something I want to focus on. How do we get to that big final attack? Now, they're similar, but they're different in so many ways. For example, for Switch Axe, you bring out the sword, you slash the monster a bit, you have to manage your gauge of how long you can be in sword mode, so you gotta switch back to axe. But in the end, you're charging up your files, and you can finish off with a big latch-on explosion. It all happens decently quick. With Charge Blade, you have to... Well, first of all, you have to do an entire 8-year college diploma term to be able to even remotely understand how to use the weapon. And then you have to go all the way to the grocery store and then help out with the clerk, and he's going to help you charge up your ingredients and get them all into your shopping cart. And then after the 8 hours it takes you to do that, you have to thank the clerk by hitting him over the head with that exact same shopping cart, because we believe in sharing, and I'm very caring. But there's a bit of a difference in that one. One, takes 4 years and you'll have an entire family, and the other one you can do in a Sunday's walk. Now, let's talk about Greatsword and Hammer. Once again, very similar thing. They look very similar on paper. With the hammer, you charge up to level 3. You can do it while you're moving or while you're not, and you do a big old hit. For Greatsword, you charge up to level 3. You can't be moving, and you hit the monster really hard. Respectively, they're the slowest and biggest damaging weapons of their class, of slashing and blunt. But how they get there in the sense of movement is very different, and that's what I want to touch on here. With a hammer, you can charge up while you're moving around. You can go around the place, say hi to all the palicos, say hi to the endemic life, still be charging up it over your shoulder, and then just boom, lobotomize a poor old Teostra. I don't like Teostra. Actually, I don't like Lunastra more. I just like saying I don't like Teostra because it pisses people off. Anyways, with Greatsword, however, it's a bit of a different scenario. You have to stand still. The best things happen to those who wait. And Greatsword takes that quite literally, as you have to wait a full calendar year to be able to pull off your greatest attack. No shame or hate, that's my favorite weapon. I'm just admitting that 99% of the time, I'm getting hit out of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's gonna look cool. The monster moves 2 centimeters to the left, and I whiff and cut the air in twain. Looked cool if there was a monster there, not so much when there's nothing there. But what I want to highlight is the movement of this. Like, Hammer has a lot more options. You can dodge out of your charge fairly easily, you can always just stop charging if you need to, and you can reposition if the timing isn't right. But the cost of that is less damage than what the greatsword can pull off. The greatsword can get to its true charge in many different ways, some quicker than others, but the end goal is to get to that level 3 third stage charge. Stand still, big numbies, big damage. Now, you may be asking, why did I tell you about weapons that you probably already know plenty about, or that you already have a fair understanding about? Well, that's why the reason for this is because it compares and is very important for what I'm about to explain to you. My dream 15th weapon, the Gauntlets. Now, what factors would require me to count this as punching a monster? Well, pretty simple. You can't be holding a weapon. Duh. With dual blades, you're like holding big old slashies, and you're kind of just with greatsword, you're holding a big old sword. No. It's you. You're the weapon. You're the monster. You're the creature. You are the absolute unit of a hunter. And what I mean by that is I kind of talking about how, dual blades for the Nergigante ones, it's like a glove and it's like the claws. That, but you're just throwing haymakers with the monster. Number 2 is I want to simulate the feeling of a calculated dance. Like in a boxing match, One player you obviously can tell is reading the opponent's moves, hitting that perfect dodge, and BAM! Good liver shot and you're down. That's the kind of thing I want to replicate with this weapon. Now, how do we do that? Well, the way I found it is we kind of compare it to the same family of dual blades, It's a dual weapon, it's faster than the other weapons, does less damage, but still gratifying. And where dual blades is the master of verticality, only challenged by Insect Glaive, being able to jump off the monster and Beyblade down its down its back. I was thinking of Fatalis, I was fighting him earlier. My apologies. I want the Gauntlets to be the master of horizontal movement. Now, how can we do that? Well, pretty simple. There's going to be a built-in move that I want to happen with all Gauntlets, and that is the roll. Now, with things like dual blades, they have pretty quick dodges, they can recover pretty quickly, and that's not what I want. I want the Gauntlets to have very calculated and precise dodges. So, a little bit more recovery frames than would be for the dual blades, but a shorter dodge than just picking up your weapon and rolling, and a little bit almost similar to how Charge Blade holds out its sword and dodges to the left or right, that kind of way. But instead, if you hit a perfectly timed dodge, you can get a liver punch out of it, or just a side punch that will combo into your other moves. Speaking of that, how should this weapon play? Well, it should be slower than the dual blades, obviously, and then faster than other weapons. As it being a KO stun weapon, it should do less KO damage than something like, let's say, Hunting Horn or Hammer, obviously, but its quick hits will make up for that fact. Now, the main gimmick is it's going to be a file weapon. That's right, it's a file weapon. And how you do that is by punching the creature and doing your combos, you'll gain and charge up kinetic energy that you can put into your files of whatever element or type that you choose. Now, the main gimmick of this weapon is standing still and doing combos. Finding your perfect time to really hunker down, beat the crap out of the monster, get a perfect dodge, hit that liver punch, and keep going. Now, what do you get out of the liver punch? Well, for the liver punch, you get different combo variations than you would for normal punching. Now, for normal punching, you would maybe do a couple quick hits and then finish it off with some bigger, meatier hits. With the liver punch, you have to go straight into those meaty hits, so it incentivizes you being very calculated, not just spam dodging. Now, what happens when you charge up those files and you have them fully stocked up into your Doomfist gauntlets? Well, this is where the fun happens. Your attacks become beefier because you're using the files to shoot your fist forward from the back of the gauntlet and punching out of the front. So, now for the dodge, instead of just a normal, liver punch, you get the liver punch into a flurry of blows that finishes off with charge attacks. And for these charge attacks, you have to hold the attack button, and it'll do big, giant punches that finish off with an uppercut. And that's the big move. That's the big thing about this weapon, is you're trying to finish off by getting really quick combos to build yourself up and finishing off with these deliberate charged attacks. Now, the coolest thing is, for this uppercut, if you press left trigger, you'll latch onto the monster, grab it, and just start beating the shit out of it with a final uppercut that completely uses your files and ends off back at square one. So, I have 20 seconds left of this video. So, final thoughts. I want a slower, deliberate version of dual blades that prioritizes the user being able to calculate and use these precise combo moves and really understanding the monster. And if I get that, I promise you, it will be one of those beautiful dances you'll ever experience in a weapon. Thank you guys for watching. I have 1 second left. Bye!